my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone.
Hi everyone, this is the latest episode of Heidbangers podcast. I'm Neil, and also here tonight is Matty and Gordon. How's it going, guys?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. The topic for this conversation is something which is like close to all our hearts, and is like being parents and the sort of trials and tribulations of kids, not just the Robbie Williams and Kylie Minogue song, which is an absolute banger, but children in general, and preferably our own. If you've got problems with other people's kids, then fair play. But
close to our hearts and a pain in the neck.
Exactly. And it's an interesting one because when I was doing, like, at one point, doing the changing room drop-ins and stuff, which helps men tackle mental health through football, and I know this isn't like a Hibs-related podcast, but it was all like just a group of us there at Easter Road, and it was 8 men, and then we started talking about kids, and we all realised that we were dads, and the impact it has got parenting, that sort of like the effects it's got on us mentally, trying to be the best. And I suppose it's worth saying as well, this isn't like men are better than women or that. Do you know what I mean? Dads are better than mums or anything like that, because it's definitely not that, but it's just this sort of like...
Wouldn't dare.
I know, it wouldn't be worth it.
We're recording the day after Mother's Day as well, so that would be... Aye.
I know.
Yeah.
Aye. Emily Pankhurst will be like, turning in her grave. She's dead. Aye, she's dead, aye. But nah, and it's just like a chat about it and stuff like that, because it is challenging. I know I've like faced many challenges being a parent, but what about yourselves? Like, how do you guys cope with being parents?
Day by day.
I'm kind of coming out the other end of it now. Right? So obviously you never stop being a parent, do you, right? But like my oldest is 19, be 20 this year. Next oldest is 17 in a couple of months, and then my youngest will be 14 in May. So I don't know if, like, I was going to say the really hard part of a parent is right at the start, but actually that's not true. When I think about it, there's different challenges all the way through your kid's life as they're growing up as a parent. And I was going to say there's no manual. Folk write self-help books and that, but like I looked at them and you thought, fuck, nah, I'm not doing that. Some of the stuff that they're recommending, you think, really? But I wish
just wankers.
That's what it is. It's like, right, in an ideal world, like that's what it's all like. In an ideal world, you would do this with your kids, and you go, well, life isn't like that. It isn't an ideal world that we're in. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to go, like you say, Gordon, day by day. What were you? What were your thoughts on it all?
I think it's like, and that is like total day by day. And I'm sure, like, I read like a dummy's guide to being a parent. I'm sure I did. It rings a bell, like, but you can't, you know what I mean? You can plan for everything, but you can't plan for like your kids and stuff. And I think one of the biggest factors, no matter like when you're a parent, you get told about it, but you don't actually appreciate it. You never recover from it, is a lack of sleep. And I know, like, a lot of stuff will maybe sound like ungrateful. Clearly, like, we don't want to come across as being ungrateful, but see, the lack of sleep, you never recover for that. Like, never recover. Just a total killer. Do you know what I mean? You're like, fucking hell, man. Like, how's this? Remember, like, when my youngest was born, she was born in March, actually. There's her birthday next. In fact, it's Thursday, actually, I should remember. But because she was born in March, so, like, I was getting up and doing the feeds and that, and it was like the summer, and you don't realise how light it is until it's like 4 a.m. She was up for like exactly an hour, like change her, feed her, change her again. And I was like, I was done like 4. So that you then like put her back to bed at 5, and I was like that. Well, I'm wide awake now. Do you know what I mean? I watched like loads of shite on telly. I watched, well, not that it's shite, but I watched the director's cut Almost Famous about like 3 a.m. one time, just blitzed it because it was on. I was like, I may as well watch this. And I watched a film called like Taxidermia, which is a Russian film about 3 generations of taxidermists. It was on Film 4. It was like a horror film. And then it was like +1, so I just watched it again. Like, but the lack of sleep, I'd never recovered for that. Never
I got quite.
recovered for that.
I think I got quite lucky with that though. I never really had. So I'm quite. So the only thing that I've got unique compared to you guys probably, as far as I'm aware, is I have two stepkids, that are adopted. So they are technically mine, and I've got one biological that's my youngest, and the age difference is quite big. So I wasn't the so I met my wife when the older two were 6 and 4. So they've always known me as their dad, pretty much, as far as they can remember. I can't remember anything after I was 4 year old much.
No.
For before, fucking it is after actually, but it's getting to that age. Before I was 4, but so I'm kind of doing. My youngest is 10, just turned 10. My oldest is just turned 20, and my middle one's just turning 18 and next week. And so there's been quite kind of, it's like other ends of the scale where we've had like a wee one and the older ones, and navigating that all at the same time are no any fucking easier than each other. But the whole sleep thing, I remember so I've only done that part once, and I got quite lucky because he was like just really great at sleeping, to be honest. But see the times, see in hindsight though, and I get like, see when you were just saying like sitting up there at night and they were 3 in the morning and watching something and just like try to get them to sleep or bottle feeding them or whatever it was.
Or breastfeeding in my case.
I'm not saying anything. Cracking set though. In hindsight, like I loved it. Like I would do it again. I just like I ken it was hard and it was the sleepless night and you go a bit like a zombie and everything, but just see that those moments, it just holding like your wee one and just being there for them to get them to sleep and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm quite soppy about that shit, but I think I just loved that. There is obviously the whole like the bad side to it where you can't you're not going to sleep or anything, but there's such a great side to it as well.
So I think that was probably where I first started. Like, do you know when you doubt whether you can do it as a parent? So Josh, when he was born, right? So he was at the first. There would have been 25 when he was born, right? I think 25, 26, and he never slept. He wouldn't sleep like all day. He would go like a 10-minute nap and then he'd be awake for hours, and then you'd think you'd got him to sleep and you'd put him down in the cot, and as his head hit the pillow, he'd wake up and that'd be him for ages again. You're like, I used to drive him about Edinburgh, so to give Jane a rest. So Jane breastfed, and it would be like you said, like 3 in the morning, and I'd take him because he would sleep in the car seat in the car. So put him in the car, and I'd drive. My first car was like an old Vauxhall Astra. We're driving about in this wee Vauxhall Astra with the music down low, and it'd be something sort of soothing to get him to sleep. And then he'd just be praying when I get back to the house that either Jane would have had enough sleep to take over, or that he'd keep sleeping long enough for me to get sleep before I went back to work. And I'd go into my work and it'd be like a half-shut knife, and just like I could not function. Like stuff that I found easy became really, really difficult. But I found like almost like this will sound terrible, but this is the sort of thing that probably this podcast is good for just opening up about these feelings, because other people I'm sure will have felt like this as well. I started to really resent him at the time because I'm like, just fucking sleep. Just I need you just to be quiet, just to go to sleep for a while, because I can't deal with this. And I remember like it was maybe like the third or fourth night after he'd been born and he came home, and that realization that there's no respite from it, there's no let up.
No.
And we didn't ask for loads of help for our parents, and they did help, and anytime we did ask them for help, they came in and helped. But we tried to, and like I wish I hadn't done it. I wish we'd been just like, please take him for the weekend and let them have that time with him. We kind of wanted to do it ourselves, I don't know whether it was like to prove that we could cope with it or whatever.
You were the same.
I wish we'd just done it. I wish we'd just said, go on. And again, folk get judgmental about that. They have the bairn and they're always handing them off to their folks, or Ken, they're never looking after them. Fuck, do that. Like, go get the time. Because before before you have a kid, and you can go and you can kick the arse out at the weekend, and on
Yeah.
the Sunday you just I'm not there on the Sunday, I just stay in my cot. I'll sleep until Hollyoaks is on or whatever. Do you know? And you just like don't crash out all day, recharge for the Monday, and you could carry the hangover into Monday if you really needed to, but you would just take it easy on the Monday. When you've got a bear in there, you're like, it doesn't stop. They didn't go, you're tired? Well, we'll have a sleep for 12 hours now and you can catch up. They're like, feed me. And I found that really difficult because you have that. Obviously, you love them to bits and you adore them, but at the same time, you're like, I wish I could just do something with you that when I didn't have you there now, so I could sleep for a wee bit. Horrible way to think as well.
Oh, we're quite selfish that way, though, aren't we? Or are we just by nature? Fine, but there's different levels there. I think there's a happy medium as well. There is people that they hand off their kids to their parents all the time, and I get it. Like there is, and you're right. We probably should have done more of it as well, but there is a happy medium. Like you've got to take responsibility. There's
of course
a level of just like skirting that responsibility altogether. It's like, well, you've got to bring up your bairn.
Aye, that's true.
Somebody else do it, but I know, totally get you. Like totally get you.
I remember one time being out. I think it was like a Ricky Hatton fight. Ricky Hatton and like Floyd Mayweather. Did he fight Floyd Mayweather? But it was one of those, like, obviously it finishes at like 6 in the morning and getting in. And then Saul was just getting up. He was just a kid. And it was that, like, I went through his room and see him, and Sarah came through and I was just like cattled on his like floor. And he was like lying on top of me. And I'm like, if I'd rolled over, I would have crushed him, but I was just like total out for the count, like proper like 24-hour drinking session. I was like Ricky Hatton. I was just like sparkled, staring at the sky, staring at the ceiling, and then he's on top of me. But aye, and it is. I never like, but it's because I'd always end up getting up early after that. I never had a long lie. Never the long lie. It was mad. But and that's one of those things you sort of moan about it. But and I totally get what you're saying, though, Matty. You're like, I just need like that sort of rest, and even see when like they're maybe younger and they're more like relying on you. It's that thing that sounds really petty as well. Like, say you're making their tea, depending on how many kids in that you've got, or what you're up to. You know, like I used to look after them on a Wednesday, so look after like Sol and Lex, and then look after my nephew as well, and come home, get them for like schools and like nurseries and stuff, get them home, make them dinner, and it was just like pandemonium. Do you know what I mean? You're like, I just like, I'll get this done, and like, what about this? What about that? What about this? I remember one time I was actually speaking about this recently. It was like fish fingers and spaghetti hoops and chips or something, and I got everything done for them. And I was like, they're sitting down. So I went through, took my plate through to sit down with them. And then one of them was like, oh, I've not got, where's the ketchup? So I went to get the ketchup and I just tipped my plate over and it landed like face down on the floor. And I was like, So that's it. But I suppose it gets you more in tune with like planning stuff and that. So the next thing I was like, right, ketchup on the table. Do you know what I mean? How can I make that experience better? Because you don't want kids being brought up in a hostile environment. And I've like probably like I've never hit the kids, but like sometimes you like say stuff and that. Do you know what I mean? And like it's not taken away for domestic abuse or violence, but you can like sometimes words are more hurtful than like physical actions. Sometimes maybe I don't know. So it's just sort of being mindful of that as well.
You learn like so. I always thought that it was like kind of a dog kens how to. It's probably a shit fucking analogy, but how a dog knows how to cock its leg to pee or to bury. Like every dog, nobody teaches a dog how to do that. They just fucking can't how to do it. I always thought that like when you have kids, it's probably there's that whole maternal side of things, and I think it's scientifically proven that women have it more than men, as far as I believe. But still, I think it's there in men as well. And I always believed that like you just. It's in us to know how to bring up kids, but then you see all the fucking arseholes out there that just are incapable of doing it, and you're like, is it that, or is it just that you have to be a certain type of person? I think potentially.
I think a lot hinges on your own upbringing, like because loads of these things are learned behaviours. We were talking, so I was talking to Colin and John before we recorded Short Bangers last week. and we were talking about managing people's sickness, right? Like in a work environment. And I was saying, right, well, you could always tell who was a good manager and a bad manager by their sickness record, and you can't who would have a good sickness record and who wouldn't. Not their personal one, but for their team.
Yeah.
When somebody would come in and say, like, his wee doed off sick today, and you'd say, he's phoned in, the manager that goes, oh, for fuck's sake, is a bad manager. And the one that says, I hope they're all right, is a good manager. And you could go, and it was virtually 100% accurate. You go check the one that said, I hope he's all right. You look at their sickness, and they've got a problem in their team. It's always great. And the one that says, for fuck's sake, they've got folk off all the time because the manager just treats them in a way that's not right. But the way that manager behaves is based on how they've been managed before. It's what they've learned and what they're used to. And I think it's the same thing with parenting. I think a lot of us, and I'm sure this is accurate to say as well, but a lot of us base our own parenting on our experience of being parented when we were wee. I don't know if you recognise that in your own situations.
It is like that though, and it's like I'm turning it at my dad. And it's like that exact kind of example when you like I can see a lot of stuff that I do and saying that with the kids is just exactly like my dad. I'm like turning at my dad, which is not, but my dad is, I was really lucky to have a great upbringing and stuff, but there was a lot of things like, no, that like my dad came from quite a strict background-ish, but like his mum was really religious, my granny, and that was really religious and stuff, and she was quite strict and kind of like would give him a good scalping and stuff like that, just the way it was back then.
Hi.
She had elements of that. We never really like hit me much or anything like that. It was a few occasions and stuff, but it was quite strict and had certain views. And I think that's one thing that maybe goes against that because like I think I'm a bit more understanding, and that's maybe more because of where society is now. So I think we've kind of evolved with society, but hopefully taking the best bits of what the past generations taught us.
Do you think it's more, because that's an interesting one, right? And especially when you talk about the discipline side of things, right? Or the level of strictness in the relationship. So obviously there's a way to manage it. And I think nowadays obviously you're not allowed to smack kids, and when I say like you're not allowed to, it's not like that's the reason that it should stop you doing it. It should stop you doing it because it's no a great way to discipline or teach a kid. But if you look at the sort of the tools available to parents now, even things like, so when we had the young kids, remember Super Nanny? Super Nanny was on the TV, and it was all about the naughty step. Like that was like every time she would go into these problem households, and it'd be like, where you put them on the fucking naughty step, and how old are they? They're 5, so they go on for 5 minutes, and if they get off, you go and put them back on, and you have this big battle with them until they learn that they need to stay there for 5 minutes, and then they come in and say sorry, and then that's them, they learn not to do it. That's been totally rubbish now, like totally discredited as a way of doing it, but it's like that was drilled into his, that was like the most effective, that was the modern way to do it. At some point it would have been smacking kids and all these things, but I think actually as a parent, one of the things I found really difficult was getting that balance right to say, can your kids saying no, right? No, I'm not going to do it. And kids all do that, right? It's natural. They push the boundaries and they try to see what they can get away with. When they're at that point, when they then go to their bed and they get back up again, do you know, like it's bedtime, and they're going, I want to stay up, and they get back out of their bed, and you're like, you're eventually at the point where you're having to lift them up and put them back into bed, and then they get up again, and you're like, I used to find things like that, like I didn't know what to do. I'd be like, how am I going to? Because you feel you have to win in that situation, don't you? Like to sort of assert your authority, your dominance in the situation, to kind of get it. But it ended up like a battle so many times, and you think, must be a fucking better way to do this.
I know.
But I could have done with some help there. Like I used to struggle with stuff like that a lot. A lot.
I suppose there's no right answer though, do you know what I mean? With stuff like that, because everybody's different. And it is maybe that thing, like there's no handbook on it because there's nothing to like sort of teach, do you know what I mean? But I totally get where you're coming from. Sometimes like the advice was like, everybody I think has good intentions when they're like teaching like parents and new parents what to do and stuff, but other times you're like, honestly, and I think a big thing is like dummies as well. Like I don't know like what it was like for your kids, but like the older generation would be like, you can't even have a dummy in their kid's mouth and that, you need to take it out, and you're like, that helps them sleep. You're like, no, you can't have that.
We did
And
the
then it's like,
dummies for.
nah, we did it, we did it, but
Aye.
we got them off it like relatively quickly. But
Mm.
see, when folk were like, nah, you can't do it, it's like, well, you come at 3 in the morning and get them back to sleep because I'm away to my work. Says out of work, we're knackered. Do you know what I mean? You come and take a shot at that point
Aye.
on a Tuesday night.
I think we
And
read
it's
too
that
much
thing
into
where
these
like,
things, O'Neill. I think you're right. Like,
nah,
and I think that goes back to what we were saying at the start about being kind to us. Like, see, as a parent, when you're struggling, don't worry about the shortcut. Take the shortcut if it makes. Maybe that's bad advice, but I think like life is short and it's difficult to deal with kids when you're stressed out. See if you could have saved yourself 5 hours of fucking pain by getting the bear in the dummy. You can like they're not going to be in the dummy for all their life, right? You can
no,
there's like a whole history of kids that have been weaned off of dummies that have survived the use of a dummy that have grown up as fully functioning adults that had a dummy as they were a kid. Maybe there's an argument to say just be kind on yourself sometimes and didn't listen to all the outside noise about what you shouldn't be doing and just give them a fucking dummy.
Can they be a dummy? Give them the dummy.
Aye,
yeah.
it's a slogan.
I'll get my fucking quote. But I think there's a whole like probably this podcast and what we've talked about, like the awareness of mental health now, and more understanding in mental health has helped us as parents as well, because 100% now I sympathise and try and understand than I did like 10 years ago with the kids. Like, genuinely, I would just be like, you've just been a wee shit. Now, genuinely, I'll think, he's had a bad day. Something's really like set him off here, or there's something not quite right. And you kind of like sympathise more and you try and understand more and then try and sit down and talk to her. Like one thing that because like you guys, all your kids are quite close together in age, but like obviously I was saying that there's 10 years between my oldest and my youngest. And I kind of just, I mean, it's one of the biggest regrets like that I've got is the way that I parented at times the older two. So I came in, I was quite young, got with my missus, thought I was ready for all this and everything. And in hindsight, I wasn't ready. Like I struggled with a lot of stuff. I thought I could just come in and be the knight in shining armor and like make their lives absolutely fucking amazing and save the day and bring them up and be the best that they could be and all that. And I hope, like, I'm sure in some aspects I have, but there was a lot of times where I did things like the wrong way. And especially with the oldest laddie, just didn't deal with his tantrums, temper tantrums very well. Didn't sympathise enough with him about what he was going through and understand of just, you know what I mean? You just like punish him straight away and just kind of like, and there was that whole thing where he's like, you know, my dad, and then I would react to that and all this kind of stuff. And there was a load of stuff for quite a few years that kind of went on, and it would come and go. So it was never like I wasn't abusing him or anything like that. And it was just I was struggling. Like I could see myself as a parent, I was struggling because I'd jumped in the fucking deep end without armbands on and I was drowning. And I never realised it until a couple of when my wee one was about 3 or 4, when he started like being his own wee person, similar to what they were when I met my missus, and I met them, the older two, and I sort of kind of realised that like I went about this all the wrong way, and it's one of the, and I've said to them like, I can't take back what happened in the past, and sometimes I wasn't always the greatest dad, and like and genuinely I have like I can say I've been a good dad, like but there's still stuff I regret and stuff now that my youngest is getting the best in me as a dad because I learned feel that, and I feel fucking rotten because I feel like they didn't get that, and they've got a great life, they've got a big house, and they've got all the stuff they need, and they get money whenever they need it. I never went wanting for anything, and I've always said I love them every single day. But I genuinely like I know that I could have been better, and it's good that I learned. Because that's all you can do, right? Like, you make mistakes. That's all you can't go back in the past. All you can do is learn from it and deal with what's happening right in front of you, or what's happening that's going to happen in the future. And from my youngest one, he's definitely getting the best of me as a dad. And I think it's good, but because there must be loads of folk in situations that didn't have that opportunity to, when there's no big age gap, or whatever, or They are in the learning felt. They didn't get like it's too late. They maybe only have one kid and they make the mistakes. They jumped into it too soon. So I suppose like just like a question for both of you is like what would be the best advice you would give parents on how to try and be the best parent you could be?
I think it's like probably just like try and understand them as much as possible, and it's like probably easier said than done. But like communicate and make them feel like trusted and supported, and like that they can come to you in that as well. Do you know what I mean? Like if they're struggling with anything, then they can come to you, and likewise you can go to them as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's like trying to get just like have a focus on them as well. Do you know what I mean? Like have a like try and like share interest, but don't force yours upon it. And it was funny because like we saw he was never really into football, and I was like, I never forced it upon him. Like I never took him to Hibs game once when he was younger. But then through that, I just sort of like he started playing football and became like a Hibs fan in that as well. Now he's like got a season ticket. But I think it's just a case of like try to let them be their own people, but like making them feel trusted and always being in their corner as well. I think is a good bit of advice. You know what I mean? Like I've been an idiot growing up, definitely, and there's like stuff that I would definitely like do the opposite of what I did a lot of the time. But like the one person who was always in the corner was my mum. Do you know what I mean? Like no matter what.
Mm.
But then I suppose you still need that bit where maybe there was times that she was a bit too lenient with me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
But she's like, oh, it's my son and stuff like that. Whereas like I probably needed like a bit of like the I don't know, not so much laid back. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's just a case of like supporting them, caring for them, making them feel safe as well. And it is that thing of like appreciating stuff because like the whole world's like the arse is collapsing as we speak. Do you know what I mean? We're not all going to be able to like put like photos on Christmas morning, the presents and all that. Like fair play if you do it, like, but do you know what I mean? But it's not always about that. It's trying to like, it's just trying to like, it's making an effort. I think making an effort, and it's funny because like again we saw when I used to look after him on a Wednesday morning. Sarah was working, but he was like proper, like he was more into like Sarah than it was me. It was mad, and he hated me. Like they all like felt like he hated me. So like when on Wednesday, he would, if she went at work, I was off. He would like cry if she was already there, or if he got when she was leaving, he would like claw at the door, waiting on her, like go, don't go, don't go. It's like I can't remember how old he was. It was about 15. I'm only joking. It was 2 or 3 or whatever that toddler thing. But remember, it's that whole thing where you're trying to be like, oh, nice here, come on. And after a while, I was like, just let him like, remember just leaving him like crying at the door. I thought, there's nothing I can do. Do you know what I mean? Nothing I can do. And it was funny, he came through and he was like sobbing away and stuff like that. And he had, I was like, you all right? He goes, mummy. And he had a Spider-Man figure in the sand. I goes, what you got there? Spider-Man. I was like, do you like Spider-Man? He goes, he goes, do you like Spider-Man? I goes, listen, I put on X-Men 2 on DVD. I'm not even sure how old he was there. And I goes, this is what superheroes are about. And we both of us just sat there and watched it. And then I made him like Wolverine claws out of cardboard. I'm not like creative, but I'm not really good at doing it. But I'm like, I was just effort. Like, there you go. And I made him like the sideways and stuff like that as well. And then I did like being Wolverine. And ever since then, it was like, that sort of click. I think it's like showing an interest and being focused on them as well when you can. And making Wolverine costumes as well. But I don't know if that's always going to work.
I think that's a good shout. That bit about making them feel safe and everything, definitely. And like you were saying, Gordon, about telling them that you love them, like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it shouldn't be hard for a kid to get your approval. Do you know what I think? I think that was probably something like definitely for the oldest two was something that I didn't give my approval easily enough on things. Like if I look back, I was never impressed. No, I was impressed and I was proud of them, but I didn't show it. Like I always wanted them just to do like a bit more. Sometimes you need to celebrate the small wins with them. Do you know what I mean? Like when they think they've done something brilliant, you make a fuss over them. And I think I didn't do that. And I always had this thing about I didn't need to be your pal. I need to be your dad. You know, like my job is to make sure that you sort of leave me at some point as a fully functioning adult that's contributing it healthily to society that can go and have a happy and healthy life.
Yeah.
And I wish that I'd gone more times where I was like you described, didn't you, about, okay, let's just do something as pals, put a film on, or because I remember having that moment with Josh, and I really struggled with Josh. Right, so when Josh was sort of as a teenager, we like locked horns all the time, like all the time. It was relentless, and it would be over stupid things like. And I remember one time grabbing him by the throat, and because he was like, I was he called me a liar, and I hadn't lied. It was him that had lied, right? And it was a stupid thing to get worked up about, but it built up and built up and built up. I would come in with McDonald's. He'd hit one of my daughters with a drink, which is what kicked it all off, and then said he never did it, and then called me a liar for saying he'd done it right. So when we were in there, and he laughed in my face, and I came, you just get the red mist, and I grabbed him, and as soon as I grabbed him, I was like, "Fuck, are you doing?" I stopped. And then I remember like taking him up the stairs and sitting down and saying, "Listen, I was totally out of order there. That's no how you should handle one of these things. That's no on you, right?" I said, "I'm not going to talk about what your part in that. I'm going to take ownership for what I've done. I was out of order. I didn't want that behaviour repeated. I'm embarrassed by it and all the rest of it." And I had like a big think after that. And I was like, how am I going to connect with this guy? Because I love him. Like obviously, like I love him to bits. And I could seen me. It's seen me with other pals, like, and it's like he saw me as a totally different person. I was like, why does he not know who I am? Like, what he obviously just sees me like as the father figure, like, and that's it. It's like I'm not a bad guy. I used to like rack my brains and go like, I kind of am all right. Like I get on well with people. Why am I fighting with this kid all the time? And then I was like, I need to show him that side of it. So include him in things and talk to him like I talk to my mates, rather than like. And this is again, it's no good parent advice, but rather than never swearing or never telling like a joke that you would tell your pals, but you wouldn't know what to tell your kids, is it? Obviously, he's getting older and made it easy to do it. I started doing those things. I just would talk to him and make the jokes that I would have with my pals. And then all of a sudden, I had like a totally different dynamic in the relationship, and it became like it wasn't about me telling him to do something or not to do something. Although that still does happen from time to time, right? But it became like a friendship, and actually it made the conversations that you need to have as a parent much easier because you knock down all the barriers. I wish I'd learned that earlier. And it's the same with my teenage daughter when she was a fucking riot as up until maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, like gone missing for hours. In like other Fife towns, you'd get a text, Sophie's no come home. You need to go and find her. Do you care where she was? Well, Kelty or Cowdenbeath. Yeah, great. So get in the car, drive, going and fucking I think Kelty, like driving in fucking Kelty, going where she's not here. Try Cowdenbeath, right? Drives into Cowdenbeath, she's not there. Things can you just be like, just play the game, eh? And I just be like, fucking, and I could not stand her. Like I could not. I loved her, but I could not stand her because that was my experience with like almost daily. And then she grew up a bit, and then I was like, did the same thing. I was like, do you know what? If I just talk to her like I'm talking to a pal and see where she's coming from and have a bit of laugh and try to kind of communicate on her level a bit more, and we've a great relationship with her now. Like, do you know, I love her. I always loved her a bit, but I like her. I can spend time in her company without thinking, oh, I'm going to burst you now. You know, it'd just be like she's really good fun. She's funny and you can have like grown up conversations. We could do something together and it wouldn't be like awkward or weird or anything like that. It'd just be fun. I learned it with my youngest one. So my youngest, we've shared stuff like that since she was tiny. Like she's funny. So we'd sit and watch Vic Reeves together. Kind of like, come on, Jess, come and watch this, and we'd watch again Shooting Stars or Heidbangers Parenting Mortimer or a daft film together and all that kind of stuff. And she'll send me a playlist for music and that. And that's what I learned. And probably advice is it's all right to be pals with your kids. Eh? Like you can still be pals with them and show them the right way to go.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's getting that balance in it though. Like again, just kind of resonating what you said there about being their pal and not always being their dad. But I've always really struggled, and I don't know if you guys have, and probably that's just coming with you, Matt, at one point, is we know how fucking shit the world is. We know how it's getting harder and fucking harder. And I struggle with that to like, as it's our responsibility, right, as parents, to set them up the best we can for life, right? Give them the advice they need, give them the foundation they need to go on and make a good life, get a fucking nice house, get a nice job, all that kind of stuff, and be, yeah, want them fucking not being able to put food on the table, or in fact, I don't want them coming to me when I'm fucking 60-year-old asking for fucking money all the time. That's one of the reasons I know. But that's why I struggle. It's like, it's trying to, and so I've kind of managed to get that balance where I give them the advice, and it's only been the last couple of years I've managed to kind of, I'll say perfect it, but get better at it, is give them the advice in a way that I'm the fucking like telling them off or demanding them to do it. Because I think that's really hard. It's really tricky. Like, because when they're doing stuff, like my oldest laddie leaving school this year, wants to go to college, couldn't make up his mind well, he wanted to go and get an apprenticeship for a sort of trade job. Didn't care what trade job he wanted to do. Like, how would he? Like, and I was like, well, you've got your granddad, my dad is an electrician. You've got your uncle's a plumber. You've got I've got mates that are joiners, so my cousin's a joiner. It's like, just fucking phone them. You've all got their phone numbers. Just phone and ask them what it's like. And he'll just know. He just never fucking done it. And I'm like, and honest to the point, gone in there, like, did you phone and ask about like to granddad or anything like that? But no, yeah. Sitting fucking playing his PlayStation. And you're like, I can't do this for you. But see, trying not to lose your fucking rag and just doing it for him. It's like he has to learn himself to do these things. But all I can do is give him the advice and see that realization. Like, all I can do is give him the advice, tell him what I think he should do, and then leave him to do it. And if he doesn't do it, that's up to him. He has to deal with the consequences there. And that's it. Like, because if you go, because I've seen like folk like their dads getting on them when like football player, like when we were younger, there was a couple of guys I went to school with who were fucking amazing at football and could have easily made it, and their dads and their uncles and all that pushed them harder and harder and harder, and said that you have to go to this, you have to train on this, sucked all the fucking fun out of it. Made it more a chore than anything else, and they weren't fucking interested, and they could have went on to do great things. So you didn't want to do that. You didn't want to make it a demand, because then it becomes a thing that they don't want to do, and then they're just doing it for the sake of you doing it. And then what's the point of that? You don't want them having a career because you tell them that that's what they had to do. So it's a tricky balance, but like I say, we're getting better at it. But I think that whole thing about setting them up, like being their pal and being approachable and being relatable, but also doing your duty as a parent to set them up for the best that they can be, is, I think that's where the balance lies, which is difficult.
It's hard with the other pressures on folk now as well, like on kids, because I think parents have less and less an influence on them, because their pals are accessible through their phones like 24/7 pretty much, and I can, you have some parents will limit the amount of screen time that the kids get, or take their phones off them in the evenings and things like that. I think that's probably quite a healthy thing to do. But I think now it's much harder to sort of say, you can say this is how you should be. Like, it's wrong to have that opinion. Like, it's wrong to be racist, for example, right? And I'm not saying we've got racist kids, right? But if they're going in and looking on their phone and it's like just bombarded them saying that's how you should be, and it's opposite, it's very hard for you to win that, to talk them round. And it's things like what video games they should be playing, or what films they should be watching. When should they start drinking? Should they smoke or vape, or like all these sort of things that all my pals are doing it, but all their pals are like the 5 or 6 kids that we kent when we were wee, and your mum and dad kent who all your pals were. All their pals now are like boof all over the country. They're on Snapchat and Instagram and whatever else. That's it. You've no idea who they are, and they all have a say in what your kids do and what they think are the right values to have and the right ways to behave. And I think that's difficult. Like, I'm glad I'm not going back 10 years and starting again with the kids, because I think by the time my kids are the age they are now, in 10 years' time, I think it'd be impossible. I think actually you'd almost be. It's just like swimming against the tide the whole time, unless you restricted them from everything all the time, which is, again, probably quite impractical.
I'm still like part of acquaintances with all my mates, mums and dads. Like, seen them, like, even just last week, seen one of my best mates' mum in Musselburgh High Street and stood and spoke to her for about 20 minutes.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I would not have a fucking clue who any of my bairns' pals' mums or
Aye.
dads were. Never mind that I did kind of their pals are, never mind their pals' mums and dads.
I know.
Aye.
You know what I mean? Like, you had to phone their house to come out or go to the door.
Aye.
Like, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, is Johnny there? Or, can I mean, like, who's this? It's Gordon. Oh, how you doing, son? And all that. Like, get none of that anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, like I told you recently, my oldest lad is going to be on holiday with folk. They're fucking never met them. I have no fucking idea. Like, what they're like could be fucking absolute nut jobs.
I know. I'm sure this is how Hostel started, eh?
Didn't even go there.
Nice one, Neil.
Aye.
Sorry, on you go, Neil.
It's funny, the whole, like, because my parents were quite sort of like laid back in that, and like in a good way, but they would, like, for instance, on a Saturday, the women would go to the bingo, and my dad would be like, I mean, my cousins, he says, like, I can't even remember how old I was, but 6 or 7, they'd be like, listen, we'll just like watch films, and we were watching like video nasties, like Evil Dead and American Werewolf in London and stuff, and he goes, look, you're going to see it when you're older, you may as well see it now. And I'm just sitting there like that, whoa, my word, going into, and I remember watching American Werewolf in London, and I was like in primary 2, and just I went into school the following day, and I just told everybody, I goes, this is unbelievable. It's like werewolves, and there's like Nazis and stuff like that. And I described it all in detail. But even when it came to drinking, when I was like maybe about 11 or 12, and I wasn't really like that popular as such. I had pals in that, but I wasn't really going out like Friday or Saturday after school or that. But I was like, but my mum was like, you will be going out at some point. And so they would buy me like 6 bottles of beer. And just says, like, you're going to drink from anyway, you may as well start drinking it now. So by the time I was like 16 and going out, I was a hardened drinker, eh? Do you know what I mean? I was like, I can handle it. Everybody else is like crashing and burning, and I've been like drinking Royal Dutch Lager. Do you know what I mean? I was in training. So I was like, yeah. So by the time I was like out, I was like, nah, it was good. But it was that thing where they were very much, you're going to do it. So you may as well do it.
I kids
do the line at some stuff though, I suppose. But
well, that's the main thing, isn't it? I think kids nowadays are like, I didn't think they go out as much. Well, mine's didn't, and then their pals do. They didn't go out as much as we used to. But I wonder if they've replaced because of social media and stuff, and because of the internet and all that kind of stuff. We never had like, what did you do? You played football during the day if you were in the summer or at the weekends, and then you'd go out in the fucking piss. That's all you had today, really. Whereas they have so many other things that they can distract themselves. So like, I suppose it's a wee bit better in a way. But like my daughter, like, she goes up to all the time to stay at her boyfriends and stuff, and he stays like up at Meadowbank, but she's hardly out, like maybe once a month or something like that. And I was out fucking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, like just on it.
Totally.
Be out more than you were in.
No, totally.
Definitely, like that's probably what we're all like. Yeah, that age, it is totally different. Although I think Josh he's found the student life in Edinburgh. Eh? Like, he works in a bar, so he's definitely taking advantage of it. I think he's more like me than my daughter is. So I think we're probably close to the end of the episode. Be good to chat about parents. Probably a topic that you could go on for ages with. Like, I empathise with every parent. Like, it's no easy, and I think if you've listened to this and you're a parent and you're like, I'm glad it's not just me. It's definitely not just you. Like, everybody finds it. There's never anybody that tells you that they found it easy being a parent is a liar. I think, like, or they're usually lucky. Like, and this is also that you see it on Instagram and Facebook. Post all the pictures like the dream family, Ken, they're all, and you're going, that's not real. Like, you've posted for a photo, but you didn't see like the fight that they had 20 minutes before it, or the door that was getting slammed, or the plate that was getting chucked, or whatever it is. It just,
it's all filtered in that.
You just need to be kind to yourself, and realise that everybody goes through it. There's no manual for it. You just do the best you can do.
That's the main thing. Like I said earlier, like learn for it. Like, you've got to make mistakes. Your kids are going to fucking act like they hate you at some point. They didn't. They didn't fucking hate you unless you've done something like awful bad. But 9 times out of 10, they didn't hate you. They're just either looking for attention, they're just acting out, they're just hormones are all over the shop, whatever. You've just got to take that on the chin, move past it, try and relate to them, and learn from it. That's all you can do.
Aye. Spot
I
on.
think it's also like, because I know, like, well, because my circumstances have changed that as well, so I don't see the kids as much as what I used to, but still, like, really close and stuff like that. And I think it's just appreciate, like, every moment that you've got, even like the shite. Do you know what I mean? Just appreciate, quite literally, with the nappies and that. But you know what I mean? Just appreciate everything, because like circumstances and that will change for everybody. And at one point, like, they could move out, or they'll move away, or that, or you know, like, stuff will get different. But you just need to, like, totally appreciate everything that you can do with them and make the most of the moments. And I think even like retaining focus on that, if you're like with them, try and stay off your phone as much as you can. If you're like chat, you know, just like engaging them in that, because there'll be times, you know what I mean. I know from like my point of view, just massively like missing them in that is because I don't see them as much. So it's that sort of thing where like you just want to make the most of the time that you've got with them. But I suppose that's like a thing for life itself. Do you know what I mean? Make the most of what we've got.
Amen to that, brother.
Aye, good point to wrap up. Thanks very much for tuning in, folks. If you've got a topic that you'd like us to discuss, then just hit us up on Twitter. I think that's what the young kids say these days, isn't it? Hit us up on Twitter
Hit us up,
at Heidbangers Pod or something like that. Heidbangers Pod is the handle. Aye, we're open to suggestions. Anyway, yeah, thanks very much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Cheers.
Thanks.
County line I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water, no.